like to also echo the thanks to Charles Boneham for allowing us to use this facility. Apparently this is the most amount of people that's ever been in this room. 80 people. And next week it's going to host the annual Claustrophobics Association. So thanks very much for that. This is the third one of these that we've done. So we started off at RAF Cosford, which was a fantastic launch event because we had the was it the Vulcan?
Vulcan bomber.
Yeah, that's probably the most iconic. And then we was at Otakumpu in Sheffield, so we had 100 people at that company. And now we're at Boneham Turner, which is a 100-year-old manufacturing business. And I think I'm particularly impressed with this company because of what they do, not just in this country but overseas. So it's New Jersey, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very successful American operation, and the business has continued to grow. And it's very difficult for a business, especially a family business, to keep that legacy going. There's a lot of expectation on your shoulders, I'm sure. So I think it's a testament that you've managed to get through such a phenomenal milestone. And that's really what Back in Britain is about. It's about not forgetting your roots, really. We started as an editorial campaign back in 2009. It was called the Made in the Midlands campaign. It was just an editorial supplement, really, in the newspaper we used to publish. And we started with a simple pledge, and the pledge was we will look to take on new apprentices, we'll look to export to new markets, and we'll look to open the channel of communication with local companies. Because we're in an era at the moment where we're talking about artificial intelligence, and we're not actually tapping into collective intelligence. And the collective intelligence is actually you guys working together. It's like the bee in the hive or the ant in the colony. We're much smarter together. And I think although people join because they want new business, new orders, that's not the main benefit of being part of this community. It's about learning from each other, and you'll see from the factory tour later on today, you'll see how this company operates, and you might get some ideas from that. And we do that 2 or 3 times a month. So that's one of the main benefits of being part of the group, and Charlie will speak to you guys later. But without sort of going on too long, because it's an early start, I'd like to hand over to Lord Whitley, who has been in London since 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. And once again, Charles, thank you for inviting us down here. Look, Jason's really caught the essence of the power of family and articulating in unison a powerful message which sometimes doesn't resonate with the government of any particular persuasion. Manufacturing is a significant sector of the United Kingdom, and yet, dare I say it, its lobbying often is not as effective as it should be. I've spoken to 1 or 2 people in this room today and over the years through the membership. We regularly argue about IP protection. I've heard that this morning. We regularly argue about the inequality of energy prices, and dare I say it, sometimes the legislation doesn't seem to actually understand our needs. And I'm the chairman of this group because I passionately believe in manufacturing, and I can knock the door of all the politicians and all the civil servants and advocate each anecdotal story, Charles, magnified by the 700 members that we have, saying, well, look, whatever you might read, this is what goes on. And what really impressed me during the vacillation of the last 36 months and was articulated through the survey that the Maiden Group captured was actually the stoicism and the determination to succeed no matter what the outcome was. Now, I came home from London this morning early because mainly because I was entertaining investors into the United Kingdom, actually into London. And I'm going to just touch on why we ought to be positive. The Jeremiahs have regularly said that manufacturing only contributes 10% of our GDP. We have effectively challenged that, and in fact we can make the case that it's 23% of the United Kingdom's GDP is underpinned or directly created by people like you and our membership. That's the first thing. The second thing is, where is our market? We're regularly told that the European constitutes our major trading bloc. I've just been made a strategic advisor to the Commonwealth, and I hope Charles, I just mentioned it to Charles for a second or two, and he said he doesn't mind me giving you one or two stats. It's imperative as a manufacturing sector that we export a little more. We had in the last 3 months trade, we actually, for the first time for many, many years, we actually had a balance of payment surplus. Britain doesn't need a balance of payment surplus, but we actually trade in surplus. The manufacturing side sadly declined for a while because of the automotive sector in particular. But it's imperative that we grow that, and I think Charles may talk about that. The next thing is looking where the markets are that have a propensity to buy British product. I am now a strategic advisor to what we call the modern Commonwealth. I'm going to rattle 3 statistics, so if any of you are in a pipeline to exporters who are not exporting to the Commonwealth, these are the stats. 2.5 billion people, a third of the world's population. 13 trillion pounds worth of GDP, 13 trillion, not pounds, dollars. Intertrading is about $1 trillion. And it's got some of the fastest economies in the world within the modern Commonwealth. And since 2011, Britain has enjoyed a balance of payments surplus. That basically means they are inclined to purchase from us if we present ourselves to them. So there's a massive market. In fact, throughout the world, we trade in surplus, except China and the European Union. We've got a massive trade deficit with the European Union, and if we suddenly have tariffs and we put 12% on their bits and they put 12% on ours, we've got a £68 billion advantage because we trade in deficit with them. So there's a tremendous opportunity, and on the 31st we have an opportunity as a nation state to reappraise our relationships 360 degrees into a global economy which 90% is growing outside of Europe. So it's tenacity, it's character, it's product, and it's skill, and it's a belief. And the Maiden Group is about that, and backing Britain is part of that, because clearly exporting helps, but actually import substitution. If the supply chains are being challenged, we have a golden opportunity, if we have the capacity and the financial wherewithal, to look at those sophisticated supply chains and say, but we have that capability and capacity. And all finally, the profile of the Maiden Group, 70% of our membership is privately owned, and that is a significant observation because finance and ownership are very important to how we move forward, and that is how the Maiden Group want to move the sector forward. And I hope for those of you that aren't members, become part of the family, get to know Charles, he's met us still. Over to you, Charles.
Right, thanks very much. That's me. Right, good morning. Right, so I'm Charles Boneham, Managing Director of Boneham Turner. I'm the Joint Managing Director of Peter Boneham, so Peter, if you give us a wave, and that's Peter over there. And we're the owners and Managing Directors of Boneham Turner. And of course, welcome and thank you very much for making the journey here today, so that's much appreciated. Right. So I'll give you a brief description on who we are and what we do here. We are a precision engineering company which was founded by our great-grandfather over 100 years ago. This is our main facility, which employs 47 people at this location, and we have a facility in New Jersey called Boneham Metal Products, where we have a team of 10 people. Where we are different from many engineering companies is that we have a product range and a catalogue where we sell most of our standard products from stock. Our main products are jig bushes, dowel pins, shims and Koenig sealing plugs. But we sell an additional 340 other products from the catalogue, from stock, for a next day delivery. We also manufacture specials to drawing if it's in line with our product range, with the aim of offering a wide range of precision engineered solutions. And a little bit about our history. At the end of World War I, great-grandfather John Boneham, there's a photograph of him on the wall over there, was an apprentice toolmaker who initially travelled to India to go into business with an Indian prince, who owned a number of manufacturing facilities in the area. The working relationship didn't work out as planned. The relationship broke down, it turned into a fight. The great-grandfather punched the prince in the face, and there's a problem with that. What my great-grandfather overlooked was is backed up by quite a few men, and so they gave him a good pace and put him in hospital. I think he finished up in prison, and then he had to make his way back to the UK. But anyway, eventually he made his way back to England, and in Mansfield he set up Boneham Turner in 1918 on Duke Street, and he set the company up with a guy called Mr. Turner. We don't know too much about him because his shares were bought out in the early years of trading. But it's an 8,000 square foot facility in Mansfield. But first they were involved in jig and tool manufacture and also hosiery frames, because the local district was full of hosiery manufacture. After a few years, the company started manufacturing some of its own products, such as the Acco paper clip and golf ball moulds. Our first motorsport involvement was in the 1920s and 30s, where we manufactured most of the engine components for the ERA and BRM race engines. And we were so involved with this business that the company had frequent visits from race legends Reg Parnell and Raymond Mays, and these guys were the equivalent of Formula One drivers today. When the next generation of Bonehams joined the company in the 1930s, they would read through the American trade magazines. And what they noticed with the American trade magazines was the Americans had standardised a lot of the products, where we hadn't done that in the UK just yet. So we saw a good opportunity to standardise jig bushes, dowel pins, and various other products, and put a catalogue together and sell the products from stock. So that's really where that came from back in the 1930s. During the war years, we manufactured the tail fins for the Lancaster bomber, and we also manufactured parts for the Merlin engine and the Spitfire gearbox. During the 1970s, that's when we acquired the facility in New Jersey. It was actually a company trading under another name, but we acquired it and we changed the name to Boneham Metal Products. From here, we were able to get the product into Ford and General Motors in Detroit, Michigan, and that turned out to be tremendous business for us. And even today, the US market is 40% of our business. Also in the 1970s, Margaret Thatcher came to visit us. She was head of the Conservative Party at the time, and she wanted to promote family business, and she identified Boneham Turner as a company which is a good model for family business. So that was a really nice thing. Yeah. Present day, so just looking at the present day, as things stand today, we have a customer base of around 3,000 active customers. And these customers span many different industries, which is pretty much anyone who is manufacturing something. Therefore, they could have a requirement for one of the many hundreds of parts we offer. The typical industries that we are supplying are aerospace, motorsport, composites, hydraulics, yellow goods, and what I mean by yellow goods is supplying into JCB, Caterpillar, that type of company. Future focus, looking forward into the future, we plan to build on our current customer base, but with a particular focus on motorsport, aerospace and the composite industry. And again, with our focus on the markets where we seem to do best in, which is the UK and the USA. In 2018, we got the AS 9100 accreditation, so that's really to help us, give us a leg up into the aerospace industry, and we're obviously targeting that market, and it's good to have aerospace companies here today, which is great. The future challenge for supplying the motorsport and aerospace industry is to constantly try and give faster response and delivery times whilst maintaining the high standard of quality. To help us achieve our goal in the future, we want to work with the next generation of engineers, and that is why we're pleased to sponsor Wolverhampton University race team, where we know eventually the students will be making an impact in the industry in the coming years. And of course we've got the guy from, that's what the race car is out the front, so we're glad that those guys made the journey up here today. and Shane somewhere, and Shane the driver's around somewhere, and Terry at the back there, so having a chat with those guys. To help us achieve our goal in the future, beg your pardon, even though we have to admit that 2019 was a little bit disappointing due to the uncertainty over Brexit, we still see so much potential out there. And we have a plan to grow the business over the next 5 years, which is to build on the 22% growth that we saw in the financial year of 2018. To help us reach our goals, we have spent over £700,000 on new machinery in the last 2 years, and we will continue to invest in new systems to help us reach our goals, with the aim of giving shorter lead times and improving efficiency. Right, backing Britain. Why are we backing Britain? There we go. Right, so Lord Whitby has already given you a few stats, and right. In an article in The Manufacturer, I read manufacturing contributes 6.7 trillion to the global economy, with the UK currently the world's 8th largest industrial nation. If current growth trends continue, the UK will break into the top 5 in the coming years. In the UK, manufacturing directly employs 2.6 million people. From what I can find out, the US imports 32 billion of UK manufactured goods, more than any other country. Germany is ranked second, importing 25 billion pounds of British goods, and France is third with 16 billion. Also, we know that the UK has a rich history of manufacture and invention. There is a long list of great achievements, with a few being, obviously we know, the jet engine, lawn mower, steam engine, cat's eyes, carbon fibre, the light bulb, which people think was invented by Thomas Edison, but it's actually invented by Joseph Swan. The toothbrush, telephone, military tank, disc brakes, hovercraft, ATM machines, and the long list goes on. To add to all these stats, Britain is a world leader in motorsport manufacture, with nearly all the Formula One teams located in the UK. And outside of the USA, Britain is right up there as one of the biggest aerospace manufacturers. It all makes up a fantastic picture and gives us a lot to be optimistic about. But an important focus going forward for us all isn't just looking at good opportunities within the UK. It's important that we all look to export products overseas. Speaking from my own experience, I've always found the USA a fantastic country to focus on exporting. The USA is a land of absolute abundance, with thriving aerospace, automotive, agricultural, medical industries, plus much more as well. It's easy to take for granted that it's English speaking and it has a great infrastructure. But the best bit about doing business is the American people, who hold the British in very high regard, they see us as friends, and they're always open to having a meeting and always interested in hearing what we've got to say. With this being the case, it left me baffled during the run-up to the last general election, where so many political parties wanted to be active in wrecking this relationship. The USA is really a country where we need to be building a better relationship. And it all really comes down to the politicians' contempt for capitalism. I believe that manufacturing is vital for the future of Britain and our future prosperity of a country. Did you know that for every pound of value added by a manufacturer, another £3.60 of economic activity is generated elsewhere across the economy? For every manufacturing job, there are 3.4 jobs created in non-manufacturing industries. I really believe there is a lot to be optimistic about in Britain. This concludes my presentation, but I'm sure we all agree we live in a great country, and thank you very much for coming today.
Well done.
Wow, that's a really tough act to follow. Good morning, everyone. I've got the remnants of a chest infection, so if I'm croaking, if I'm croaking a little bit, I do apologise.
You haven't been to China, have you?
No, haven't been to China. So hopefully everyone can hear me from the back. So my name's James Perry. I'm Site Director for Gardner Aerospace. Going to talk very briefly about the business, just to introduce you to that. And then perhaps most importantly, why are we back in Britain and what are we doing to back Britain. So Gardner Aerospace is actually part of or a held business with Landai Aerospace Technologies, so it's Chinese owned, but it is a UK holding business, so it has its own management structure and the headquarters of which actually are in Derby. Across the globe we've got 16 sites, Derby being actually the largest by turnover and just about by employees, but 2,000 employees or just over across the world and 200 million of turnover. We manufacture detailed parts for leading and trailing edge aerostructure, fuselage and cabin, so everything really apart from engine and landing gear, which is a little bit more specialist. We do make pretty much everything apart from those two applications on planes. The site itself, so Derby's 225 employees as we stand here today, £65 million turnover last year. There's a split between what we add value to, so there's about £30 million of true manufacturing value add in Derby. We do also have what's called an integrated logistics centre, a warehouse, where we import parts that are manufactured at low-cost sites, so-called Bangalore, and a couple of sites that we have, in India, and a couple of sites that we have in Poland. I don't make no secret about it. I think that's part of our product offering, part of our value proposition to our customers, and it's part of the reason why we actually win work in the UK as well. Derby's a little bit, I'd call it an incubation site, you may say an industrialisation site, NPI. So we'll take a package of work that's quite complex, we'll refine that process, and then we'll send it out to low cost to bring the next package of work in. And we've made quite a successful story of that over the last 4 or 5 years, and the business has continued to grow. And when I say part of a value proposition, because the customer gets to have, let's say for an example, a 5-year contract award we may win, 3 years of which are at UK pricing, and then 2 years at low cost. It's part of why we actually win work, because we're able to innovate, bring the product, industrialise it correctly, and then obviously enjoy a lower cost base then moving forward whilst we bring the next package through. Why are we back in Britain? I think the important thing for us, what's really important to Gardner actually, is locality and having that degree of customer intimacy. So we sell a lot of products, actually our biggest customer being Airbus in Broughton. We sell a lot also to GKN in Filton, and other customers that we'd like to have more involvement with. Rolls-Royce obviously very close to us in Derby, as well as Cobham. We do some applications for MOD. So location in the UK is something that our customers really do value. It means that they can speak to the guys in the UK, they can come and see the products being industrialised, they've got somebody who they know they can jump in a car rather than a plane to go and discuss technical issues or any issues that they have. It enables us being in Derby. I always kind of talk about 4 pillars. So it enables us to support the customer's technology roadmap. What's really important, I think, is if you can support the customer's technology roadmap. So an obvious example in aerospace would be composites. More and more parts now made composites. We've recently acquired a business that is a 3D printing business making composites. So we're very much aligned with our customers' technology roadmap. I think strategic and footprint wise is really important as well. So our customers in the UK, we're in the UK, our customers are developing facilities overseas, and we're making sure that we're mirroring that. I think there's the givens around quality and delivery, which is better for us in the UK, so we're able to provide 100% fulfilment to our customers out of the UK, whether that be, as I say, the value add manufacturing side, or whether that be through our logistics support. And obviously price and commercial advantage. And I do think, if you tick 4 of those boxes, then you are a supply partner, not just a supplier. I think if you probably tick 3 of the 4, then you retain being a supplier, and you're likely to stay a supplier. I think if you tick 2, then you're going to be on the exit list, whether you know it or not. Certainly that's the case in aerospace. So it isn't just about price. And I think that's a key thing to stress from a UK point of view. The differentiation isn't just about a price. Our customers value that as being probably 1/4 of the things that are important to them. We have good access to skills actually in Derby. I know I've not always worked in Derby, and 2 years with Gardner Aerospace in actual fact. And my previous experience will be very similar, I'm sure, to everyone in the room, where access to skills and getting the right skills is really, really difficult. we're fortunate perhaps that we're a site of 225 employees sat opposite an aerospace giant of 12,000 employees, being Rolls-Royce. So to be honest, because our little problem is a huge problem for them, they fixed our problem. So actually access to good talented engineers, a good apprenticeship school that Rolls-Royce actually run, and we take some guys from their apprenticeship school. It's not such a problem for us in Derby, but I do recognise obviously across the UK it is a chronic issue. I think we've definitely retained a leading position in innovation and new technologies, no doubt about that. I think, and not just my experience with aerospace, I see that in other industry sectors as well. Certainly our low-cost sites still use the UK as a technology and innovation push. I think that is definitely true. But I do think that gap is closing, it's not widening. And I think it's incumbent on us obviously to make sure that we preserve that, because that engineering heritage and expertise, if we don't nurture and invest in it, then that gap will close, and what is part of our core differential will disappear. We've got a good flexible workforce, and I think that's across the UK. I'm speaking for the UK, they're not obviously not just Gardner. I think it's a good place to invest because of our labour laws and the flexibility of our workforce. Okay, that's why I think we need to back Britain, but so press the wrong way, sorry. That's all. Okay, sorry. So how are we back in Britain? Well, we continue to invest in Derby, and by invest I mean from a capital equipment point of view. We spend around 1.5% to 2% of our turnover every year, have done for a significant period of time, and also invested in people. Obviously, we've got quite a vibrant apprenticeship scheme. We like to have around 5% of our direct workforce being apprentices at any one time. It's important we grow our own and bring those guys through, especially for traditional skills, which are really difficult to find. So certainly, in my experience, machine setters, very difficult, dual skilled maintenance guys, a proverbial rocking horse, very, very difficult to find that. So we're making sure that we're growing our own from that point of view. But yeah, Derby's a vibrant, we need to maintain it as a vibrant manufacturing location. I always have a saying that I'm quite happy for us to have an ILC in Derby, but I don't want Derby to become an ILC. You know, we don't want yet another warehouse in the East Midlands. We need to make sure we continue to produce products that add value. So our growth aspirations for up to 2022 is to take a £65 million business to 100, with £40 million of that being value-add manufacturing, and around 60 million of that will be imported. We've made an acquisition recently, PD, Digital Solutions, as a company up in Burnley. We're quite late to the market really around compositions, to be honest. We are, but I think aerospace is generally, certainly our customer, Airbus, is a little bit behind Boeing in terms of how much of a plane is plastic now, quite frankly, because it's all obviously a race to make the product as light as possible. So to try and bridge that gap where we've fallen behind is we've actually bought a business that's already has 3D printing capability, which will be really important to us. But we're also looking to convert that Burnley site into a technology centre for Gardner, because the one thing we don't do is we make to print, which I'm sure you all guys will know what that means. It means we get a drawing, it means we make the product to that drawing. We don't add a lot of value from a design point of view. All the cleverness really is how we produce the part, not really in the part, because we get told what to make. So I think what we do need to do is try to develop that capability so that we can start to add a little bit of value from a design point of view, at the very least for VAVE. So being able to offer up our customers some value, being able to suggest different manufacturing methods or different materials that we could use, different designs that would obviously enable us to pass on that competitiveness to our customers. Key to us is to continue to try to capture high value add products. So even in the 2 years I've been at Gardner, I remember joining and the guys with some parts that were transferring out to low cost, little brackets, right angle brackets with a couple of holes, but the employees would call bend it and send it brackets. And literally that simple. There's no future in stuff like that, I don't think, in the UK. I really don't. I think if you've got a product that's simple to make, unless it's a perishable good for a local market, you're not likely to keep it. So a lot of that has gone. But what we've got coming in behind it though is products now like hugely complex A350 ribs with 2,500 dimensional features on them. Very, very high complex products that's very likely to stay in the UK. And I think that's just the shift that the UK has gone through, and I'm sure we'll continue to. So it's very important we continue to industrialise those high work content, high value add packages, and focus on, you know, my kind of strap line, or what's the key takeaway message for me would be to focus on that differentiation of what is it that, what are your order winners, not necessarily your order qualifiers, because they're just participating in the market space, and making sure that you're making a product that adds value, but also making sure that you continuously, as what we do certainly, make sure continuously reminding our customers of what value means to them, because sometimes they forget. And certainly when I talk to supply chain guys in Airbus, you know, I'll constantly say to them, when they're having their internal battles with procurement sharks who just want a nickel and dime and save a few quid by moving something to low cost, is to remind them, actually, you know, what you get from Derby is you've got a local intimacy, you've got that 100% replenishment from the UK, you've got speed shop capabilities, all the things that add additional value over and above cost. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, we'll get there. We're not too far around.
You even went to the trouble of training.
We'll go back. Anyway, good morning. I'm James Underwood. Charles, can you get me on the right bit? I'm James Underwood, Manager Director of Micromesh Engineering. We're a family business, similar to Boneham Turner, and we started in 1968, so not quite as old, but it's a second generation. My father started it. He retired last year, age 80. Just been in for a knee operation yesterday, and he's raring to get back again, so he keeps coming in and annoying everybody and coming to see them, so I'm sure he'll be back again. So yeah, I started in 1989, although I was working there really since I was about 5 years old. I used to come in at weekends, packing boxes, doing packing parts for the mining industry. Packing parts for the mining industry, which is where we started out. So as a family business, 90% of our business was in mining, based in Nottingham. All around us was the mining supplies, and I would say probably at that time, like 70s, 80s, into the early 90s, I would say that 85% of our business customers were within a 50-mile radius, and I would say probably 90% of our suppliers were in a 50-mile radius. So we were very, very centred around one industry. And then in the early 90s, the decision was made to shut the pits, and we then started floundering around a little bit. We didn't really know where we were going. So, I mean, it was a similar time that I joined, so, you know, hopefully I didn't have that influence on it, but as I joined, the company went down and we lost sort of 60% of our turnover overnight. So for me, it was like starting again. You know, although we had the infrastructure and we had the staff, we then had to try and find where we're going to go from here, how we're going to keep these people employed, how we're going to get new industries. So we went out into new markets. Rail was a very strong market for us and still is.
Backwards.
Am I? I'll go upside down.
Yep.
There you go. That's what happens when you work in filters all your life, isn't it? So there we go. So yeah, so in its history, we've gone through many, many different iterations, trying to find the right market for us, trying to find the right way forward for us. And as I say, we started to then realise, I think in the beginning, we were kind of shying away from our history. Being a family business, we didn't really shout about it because it seemed to be more of a corporate world out there, and we didn't really think it was the right image. But actually, you know, as we started to develop and go into companies, we realised that people really value family businesses because they get the same person each time. Many of my employees have been working for us for 20, 30 odd years, so every time they phone up, they get the same person. It's not changing constantly, and that added real value, and we started to realise this. So, you know, we started to really work on that. And the other thing that we realised, that in the mining industry, we developed a lot of products, so we always tried to make something a little bit unique for them, solve their problems, and we realised that that had a wider application as well. So then we started working with Bombardier, well, Adtrans as it was back then, Balfour Beatty, Norton Motorcycles, which probably isn't the best one to have on there today. But we developed a new filter for them. So when they came to us and they said, can you make that? We said, no, we can't make that. We're not going to make that for you. We'll make something that's unique for you so that you can contain the aftermarket. So although, you know, it's they've gone now. They have actually sold that, I believe, that Commando to China, so they're going to be manufactured there. And the filter that we've supplied is unique. So, you know, we would hope to see some of that business come through. So, MOD is the same. We supply the filters for the Challenger tank. McLaren motor cars, we do very, very little in the motor trade because it's all very large numbers and we're more bespoke. So we deal really in special designs and low numbers. But McLaren came to us and asked us to design the filters for the new P23. So that's where that one comes in, which is nice to have on there, but really I wouldn't want to be dealing with motor trade all the time. So my next journey really was exporting. And as I show there, so in 2014, 15% of our trade was in export. This year, it'll be over 65%. And that's really from determination. When the pits shut again, we had a lot of opportunities to go overseas and look at different markets, but we didn't really focus correctly, I guess. So what we did, we went to do an exhibition, and then we'd meet lots of people, we'd come back, and then we'd expect all the orders to start flooding in. It doesn't work like that. You've got to put the dedication in, you've got to put the time in, you've got to be over there, you've got to be in the market. So we started concentrating on 1 or 2 markets. And in that 12 years ago, I went over to India. A guy phoned me and wanted some of our parts for an exhibition. We supplied him the parts, we went over to the exhibition, supported him at that, and we developed a relationship that today, so in 2014, 13, we did 25,000 in India. This year we'll do about 5 million. So we've developed it into the market, and it's actually gone back to our roots. It's supplying into the mining industry. So it's what we actually know. So it's quite interesting how things could turn around. The other thing that we're doing overseas is that we're setting up an assembly plant in Egypt. So we're looking to set up an assembly plant for gas turbine air filters, which is something that we supply. So we'll manufacture the parts in the UK, ship them over to Egypt, and they'll assemble them there for the market. Just because the size of them is so big, shipping them around the world doesn't really make sense, and there's a big demand in that particular market. So that's really kind of where we've developed. You know, we've had to kind of find our feet and stumble through a little bit, but that's where we are today. So back in Britain, why are we back in Britain? Because we've always been here, we've always been in that market. We understand the British market, we support it. You know, our employees, 60% of our employees live within 5 miles. So it's important that we drive business. So for me as the MD, you know, my responsibility is to those employees to make sure that wherever business is coming from, whether it's overseas or the UK, is to drive that business, to keep us employed, to go forward, to move forward all the time. I think there's fantastic engineering facilities. You know, we're at one today. There's any number in this room. You've got the Nottingham University, all the universities, Derby University around. Fantastic facilities. For us, it's important that we maintain a strong presence in the UK. So, you know, for us, the presence of being a major UK manufacturer of filtration is very important. So that's why we need to back that. And then without support from our suppliers, you know, we're hopeless. So we need to support our suppliers. We need to bring purchasing back into the UK so that we can develop our business. Because without them, you know, we're no good at all.
Spit it again.
I'm sure I did that one right. There we go. Right. So how are we backing Britain? So as I said earlier, what we try and do is develop unique products. So we'll always try and add some value into something. Whatever we make, we won't just try and copy something, we'll try and add some value in, make it unique, particularly if we can make it unique for our customer, so that they can then secure the aftermarket. Our product is a repeating product, so if filters are changed on a regular basis, it's important that our customer gets that aftermarket. So we brand for them, or we design something that's unique that somebody else can't fit. So that's how we try and support our customers. And a lot of those customers are UK based. We're currently working with the University of Nottingham for supply development. I know Charles is as well, to develop the supply base in the D2N2 area. So, you know, that's going to be a 2-year project that we're working on that will, you know, really start to hone in on local supply. And then really by establishing Micromesh as a top quality supplier in the worldwide markets, you know, the development that we're doing overseas and the exporting that we're doing is the way forward. That's what we're driving, and it's just building that reputation. So a lot of what we sell in the UK is branded for other people. It's important that we build our own brand now overseas, and that's really, you know, what we're saying. So I think the message is very similar between us all. You know, it's from a company where we've come from in mining to then go out into other areas. I think don't underestimate your value of your company and the value of British in the worldwide markets. And I think that's really what we're all saying. You know, make something unique, make something so it's not Me Too product, if you can, but really just to enforce that overseas.